Now, the After Action Review with Rod Rodriguez.
And welcome to episode 24 of the After Action Review podcast. I'm your host, Rod Rodriguez. And in this episode, we're talking to the CEO of Combat Flip-Flops, Matt Griffin. What an amazing business. This guy has been on Shark Tank. He's been on TED Talks. His business is all about helping people in war-torn countries and places that you don't normally think of. And these people need help. They need to get their, not just themselves on their feet, but they're in economies in countries that are trying to pull themselves out of really bad situations. Afghanistan, 9 times out of 10, we're hearing all the bad stuff. Obviously we're out there fighting. We're still losing people. But there is an entire community of citizens, of normal people who just want to work, man. They just want to work, make enough money for their families, and call it a day. They have no dog in the fight. Unfortunately, it's, a bunch of radicalized a-holes that are making life seriously shitty for a lot of wonderful people in Afghanistan. Whenever you purchase from Combat Flip-Flops, depending on what you purchase, you're going to be helping a little girl stay in school, man. You're going to be helping somebody, make a reasonable living wage to feed their family. And I'm telling you, when people have money to support themselves and their families, they're not out there looking for trouble. They just want to live like you and me, man. They just want a normal life. Without further ado, great episode right here, episode 24, Matt Griffin, Combat Flip-Flops.
My name is Matt Griffin. I'm a co-founder of Combat Flip-Flops. I'm originally from Iowa. I'm a Gemini. I like mountain biking and hunting. I graduated from West Point in 2001 as an artillery guy. I wanted to be in the Ranger Regiment. So by 2003, I'd worked my way through Ranger School and selection to get over to Ranger Regiment, and deployed 3 times to Afghanistan and once to Iraq, twice with my co-founder and business partner, Donald Lee. Got out of the Army in 2006 after my Iraq deployment. My wife was in the military as well. We had 2 girls. And it was just a really tumultuous time as a young adult, being newly married, new kids, multiple combat tours, all back to back in a row. And by 2006, my wife and I just decided, hey, we're gonna take a breather and figure out other ways to give back to our country. And got into the business world. Built homes for a few years getting out, and then I got into sales, and then I got into business, and then I always wanted to start my own business, and so we finally just made it happen with Combat Flip-Flops.
All right. So when you started Combat Flip-Flop, what was it that triggered this idea? Like, what was it that you had the moment that said, I want to do this, and it's going to be really out of the box?
When I got out of the Army, I did the first thing that everybody typically does is they take the first job that's offered to them, and just out of fear. Yeah. Like, hey, I need medical benefits for my family. I need a paycheck. I got to cover the mortgage and the car payment. So I built homes for Centex Homes for a number of years. Between 2006 and 2008, I saw the crash coming for the homes and the mortgage market. So right before, it was January of 2008, I left that job and I got a job for a company called Remote Medical International in Seattle. And they were a company that did austere medicine. So they supported gas, mineral, and oil resources, outdoor wilderness training, expeditions. But then this is the rise of contracting overseas. And so contractors needed medical support. And then they were the go-to company to do it, but they didn't have anybody that spoke government and military. So they hired me. And they sent me all over Africa, Middle East, Asia, supporting all these government contractors, figuring out narcotics and pharmaceuticals and medical equipment, and how do you actually get a doctor into a country and legally practice medicine. I mean, there's all these things that you just need to figure out. And so I spent a lot of time traveling around, and everywhere that I went, I was a civilian now. I had to stay on the local economy. I wasn't with Uncle Sam. So when I stepped out of the airport, there was no convoys, no security. It was really, can you take care of yourself? And how do you do that? Well, you're going to make the best decisions so you can come home safely. And what I found is that when you go to the areas where there's business and entrepreneurs that want to take care of their family and grow their business and help their community, those guys keep you safe. They want you to come back. They want you to spend your money there again. And I just found that everywhere I went, wherever that was, I go to the area where there's thriving business. You show up, you build relationship knowing he wants to take care of his family. You want to get home to yours. And it was a much more positive experience than I ever had in the military, wearing body armor and carrying a rifle. Awesome. So this is happening all over the world. And long story short, it was actually 7 years yesterday that I had the idea. Crazy. Well, thank you very much. I was in Kabul and I met I'm an odd looking guy, I have long hair and a beard and I kind of look weird and I am kind of weird. And we're at this conference for the Afghan military, and there's all these former army guys with short haircuts and clean shaven, and they're all talking together, and they're leaving me alone. And across the hall, there's another long haired bearded guy, and they're not talking to him either. And weird knows weird. So I went over there and I talked to the guy, and he turns out he was a former Marine that was hired by an Afghan family to build a combat boot factory in Kabul. And he had a pair of boots on the table and a field jacket. And he said, my job is to build boots and uniforms for the Afghan National Army. And I just work with the government contractors, making sure that it gets built properly and it gets contracted correctly. And he said, yeah, I have the best cup of coffee in Kabul. And being from Seattle, I said, man, I'll swing by tomorrow. I'll give it a try. Because you're in country for a few weeks, so you're jonesing for a good cup of coffee. And when I went to his facility, I found the most beautiful, clean, inspiring factory that I had ever seen. I've been in and out of manufacturing stuff for a while, but essentially out of rubble, they built this industrial level combat boot and uniform factory. They were taking people off the street, teaching them how to sew. They were bringing families back from Pakistan, so Afghans who left to Pakistan to go work as cobblers or in textile mills were now coming back to work in this factory. And this place was literally bringing families together and keeping the local security around. And it was on Jalalabad Road, if anybody's listening knows where that's at, between Masood Circle and KMTC on the north side of the road. Is the only place where you could really manufacture. So nothing ever happened to that factory. He's like, no, nobody bombs this factory. Nobody mugs this factory. They don't do that because every person here supports 5 to 13 family members. So the social impact of this one building supports thousands of people, maybe a village, and they're not going to let anything happen to that opportunity. And I was so inspired because I thought to myself, this is what we do as Americans. This is what we do as a country. As we go to these places and we made a promise that we're going to give you better schools, better healthcare. We're going to create economic opportunity so that way you can rise out of poverty. And I was literally witnessing it happen right in front of me. And I was so inspired. And I looked over at John and I said, John, what's going to happen when the war ends? What are you going to do? And he says, oh, man, we're just going to shut it down. Nobody's going to want to buy anything in Afghanistan. And I got absolutely furious. Coming from West Point, being in the military, I typically do a lot of cultural and historical research before I go fight in a country. And, a lot of the reasons we're seeing in Afghanistan is because we abandoned them after the Russians in the 80s. And I said, wow, that seems like we're going to do the same thing over and over again. We should probably keep that from happening. And the most positive thing that I've ever seen that affects these countries is jobs and economics. And I'm having all of these thoughts that are running around in my head. And I look to my half left on this table, and here's this combat boot sole with a flip-flop thong punched through it. And I picked it up, and it was so ugly and cool. And I'm literally having inspiration, fury, everything else. And I looked at it and I go, John, Americans would buy this, right? A combat boot, burly flip-flop made in a factory in Afghanistan. This is the literal transformation of swords to plowshares, military industrial production to commercial relaxation production, building connection between two countries, keeping people employed, fulfilling our promises as a nation. And I was like, man, we could do this. And I said, John, do you mind if I run with this? And he goes, yeah, dude, go for it. And I set it down and I walked out of that factory. I got in my little beat up Toyota car. I drove back to my hotel. I called Donald Lee at, it's 2 a.m. in LA, and he answers the phone. I said, Lee, we're going to make flip-flops in Afghanistan. And like a good Ranger buddy, he goes, all right, man, sure, let's do it. I go, register the domain name, combatflipflops.com. And we got it for $2.99 on GoDaddy. And that's how it started.
Amazing. So you have this factory that's making combat flip-flops. And I when you visit your website, you see all these really cool different items that you got, different products that you're making in Afghanistan, but you expanded that, right? I'm seeing products from different parts of the country, different parts of the world now.
Which goes into our challenges. So we came back with this idea. My brother, Andy, he's never served in the military, but total rocker, anti-government, anti-establishment. His whole thing is question authority, think for yourself. And he's just awesome human being. And I came back with this idea, and it's like, hey man, I've got this thought, we should do this. And he's like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. And the next day he shows up with a notepad and I mean, none of us know how to make shoes. None of us know how to use an Illustrator. And I just sketched it out on a piece of paper, the AK, here's what I'm thinking I want it to look like. And he comes back 2 days later, learned SketchUp, figured out Illustrator. He's like, is this what you were looking at? Like, yeah, tweak this or tweak that. And then we just said, oh, this Facebook thing's kind of cool. Maybe we meet some people who provide us some feedback. So we started a Facebook page. Said, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think? And people were like, oh, that's cool. I think you should change this. And we got a little bit of feedback and had enough motivation and sold all of our boats and toys and motorcycles and all the other stuff to pay for prototypes and tools. And, we made some samples, got all our tooling built, went to a trade show, showed bloggers, they blogged about it, built a crappy website, and we sold thousands of pairs of flip-flops, and it was awesome. But we'd never actually made anything in production yet, ever.
I want to hit on something you just said. You sold your toys and you went personally vested in this. Like, this was your money that you shot into this as the initial push.
That's how all business owners have to do it.
But you see,
if you don't believe in it enough to put your money into it, nobody else is.
That's absolutely right. And that's something that's one of the challenges that I've seen and heard from many other veteran entrepreneurs or veterans who want to be entrepreneurs. I'm waiting for money. I'm waiting to use other people's money. I'm like, bro, no, you've got to use that 9 to 5. And like you said, you got to sell them toys. If you want that to happen, you may have to do that.
I sold my Ducati. I sold my chopper. I sold my boat. I sold my motorhome. I sold my hot rod. I sold all my guns. And if I had it and I hadn't touched it in a year, it turned into cash, which turned into 2 duffel bags full of flip-flops and 2 plane tickets. That's what we used to launch our company, right? You got to commit to it. You got to go all in. All right. And if you're not willing to spend your own money on it, the people that you want money from, they recognize that, and they're not going to spend their money on you if you're not willing to spend your own. That's just kind of how it works.
Tell me about some of the unique challenges that have come with doing business in parts of the world where, people don't even want to visit. They think you're crazy. Like a factory in Afghanistan, not happening, but you're making
it. Yeah, so I'll try to get this as concise as possible. So right as soon as we had launched our company, Obama announced the end of the Afghan war. So all the contracts that supported our factory got pulled and all of our factories went under. So exactly what we were trying to prevent happened right as we had tens of thousands of dollars on the table. There was a cross-border shooting between the U.S. and Pakistan. So the border closed in 2012 for like 6 or 8 months. I can't remember how long it was. So our logistical route got cut off. We had to pay $10,000 to get our stuff put in an airplane and sent to Kabul. And in that process, we didn't get to QA our materials. And so we late delivery, we flew to Kabul. We went and we picked up our footwear and found thousands of pairs of beautifully constructed flip-flops out of bad materials. We had to give them all away. So we went under. Like our first entire run of thousands of pairs of flip-flops, bad, couldn't even ship them. So we gave them away. Got on my personal credit card. I leveraged every bit of credit I had. I bought 4,000 more pair of raw materials from a better factory. Cruised around in a beat-up car in Afghanistan with my brother, Andy, and we found another factory, and they said, we've heard about you guys. We want to work with you. Let's do it. 2 months later, that factory goes under as soon as our materials are ready to go. So now we have 1 bad run, 2 down factories, and I own a container full of raw materials of flip-flops. So we saw them made when we were in Afghanistan. We go, that doesn't look too hard. And well, nobody else is going to do it but us now at this point. So we pointed the container toward my house. And while it bobbed across the Pacific Ocean, we built a guerrilla flip-flop factory in my garage. And we manufactured our first 4,000 pair ourselves, mainly my brother. He got carpal tunnel syndrome because he sanded 8,000 individual flip-flops across the industrial level sand in my garage. Yeah. And that's how we delivered our first run of product. And people go, you guys are fucking nuts. You're crazy. I'm like, well, but people they wanted to be a part of the story at this point. And we hand signed notes. I signed 4,000 individual letters and I sent them out to everybody who bought our first pair. Like, hey, this is a significant milestone that you're getting these. Thank you for helping out. But when you go to these places and people go, you want to work with us? They go, come on in, let's do business. They're entrepreneurs, they're hustlers, there's businesses, and the universal language is business.
How important was your sales background to that first 4,000, and then once that was done, you're seeking more money, you're seeking new partnerships. Tell me a little bit of how important that sales background was, if at all.
I would have to say it's really important. I took some sales training courses. I like Ari Galper's Unlock the Game, stupid things like How to Win Friends and Influence People. The old Dale Carnegie method. But sales is really just about problem solving. That's all that it is. Like any true product solves a problem. And if you are asking your customers what problem they have and you could sell them or trade them in value a solution to their problem, they're going to work with you. So that's all you need to recognize as sales is problem solving. You're helping somebody else solve their problem, and they're willing to have a fair value exchange in the process of solving their problem. That's all that it is.
It's funny because you're like almost every vet entrepreneur that I've had on the show. When I ask them, what's something that influenced you, a book or something, everybody says Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And some of it, yeah, sometimes it seems a little hokey, but it's pretty good advice. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, it's business. You're going to be dealing with people forever. You have to be a good people person.
All right. So you get invited. Now, I got introduced to Combat Flip Flop actually through your TED Talk. And I will tell people that are listening or watching, if you haven't had a chance, make sure that after you're done with this podcast, you go check out the Combat Flip Flop TED Talk. You have an emotional story there about this, like you said, was it sword to plow?
Swords to plowshares, yeah.
Plowshares, and you talk about this little girl, and there's a very emotional story about a pencil. And I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but when you talk like this, and one of the things that I remember as I was watching this TED Talk, I'm thinking, here's a ranger talking about swords to plowshare. How much crap is this guy about to get? Because this runs very it runs very contrary to, I guess, the shoot 'em all, let God sort 'em out kind of philosophy that is you see it very prevalent in our veteran community. And now you've got a ranger talking about, hey, I'm trying to do something the opposite of that, promoting a very peaceful approach. And yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is, how was that reaction? How have you dealt with some of those criticisms as they've come?
I just try to kill them with kindness and performance. Like, that's it. I'm older than you. That's the only thing that I can tell you is that, look, man, I used to live that lifestyle. I understand where you're coming from. I completely embraced that mentality for a significant portion of my life, and it nearly killed me. I witnessed my friends get killed when I was in service. As soon as I got out of service, my friends are still dying. And you know what? I'm witnessing those young kids that were, I don't know, 4 or 5 when I started, that are now in service, that are getting killed. I think as service members and as people that are serving our nation, we need to look seriously and honestly about how we're interacting on a foreign countries and foreign soil, and how we're deploying our soldiers. And I tell you, a lot of these special operations and Ranger guys, they're cool with it for their first 2 or 3 deployments, but when they're on 14 or 15, those thoughts start creeping in as, hey, when is state or when is our leadership going to do something so I can actually be at home with my family? I'm tired of running around all these crap holes and chasing around, street thugs with hand grenades and bombs. It's only going to be a matter of time until I take one. And it's the older guys who have that mentality go, yeah, like I get it. I know exactly where you were at. But at the same time, too, the reason why we do this is because we don't want to have our service members go over these areas and fight stupid problems that could have been cured with business. Like, there's always going to be bad guys to shoot. Don't worry about that. There's always going to be a shortage. There's never going to be a shortage of them. But we can have a lot less spending as a country, a lot less incidents as a service members, more time with your family if we just do things ethically and responsibly. And if you don't like it, like, hey, man, I really don't care. I'm going to continue on. I don't give a shit. I get up every morning. I sell cool products and I put little girls in school. And if you got a problem with that, I really don't care. Yeah.
Your products are being made in these countries that are war torn, and like we said earlier, they're places that people don't typically think of visiting. How do you maintain uh, levels of safety for those employees? What is a measure that you use to make sure that these factories don't become sweatshops, don't become the thing that you don't the very thing that you're fighting against? What do you do to keep those things from happening?
There's multiple things. One is it's all about relationship. You have to go there. I think that most Americans have an experience through previous large companies that have exploited tens of thousands of people, and literally farms and sweatshops. But it doesn't work anymore. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has a smartphone. You can't do business and treat people poorly, and you especially can't do it at low volume. Like you just can't do it. So the one is you go there. Two is you build a relationship with people that you trust. They have to come recommended. And then you have the third party quality assurance people who stop by and they check out the factories. You don't have to go there. The most dangerous thing for those factories, to be honest, is me traveling there and exposing me to them. Like, because I'm a target, they're not. They're locals. They're just going to work. They just want to be left alone. And so what we do is the best thing that we can do is build a relationship is to create more jobs. And if you create an inspection job, that's an inspection job. You're paying another local person to make sure that those things aren't happening, and they get paid to make sure that your manufacturers are operating ethically.
That's awesome. And for these veterans that are watching this right now or listening to this on their ride home or ride to work on that 9 to 5, they want to start a business, they're excited about an idea, but they're afraid to move forward. They don't know how to move forward. What's some advice from somebody who was, going hardcore in the garage, making 4,000, 8,000 flip-flops? What's your advice to that veteran who wants to get off the ground, doesn't know how?
Yeah, it's funny. I just read this quote yesterday, but the most effective way to do something is just to do it. It was by Amelia Earhart. And that's just it, guys. Like, I'd never ran a business before. We'd never made footwear before. We'd never shipped internationally before. We'd never ran a website before. Never done social media before, never done product photography. And you know what? You have in your pocket, you have all of the information that you need to run a successful business. All of the information's out there. And if you fail, it's because you just didn't take the initiative to learn about what you needed to learn about. I like the personalmba.com. It's a online website. If you read it, there's 100 plus books. If you read them and understand the concepts out of them, it's the equivalent of an Ivy League MBA for the cost of a library card.
Wow. Okay.
And so what I say is don't wait to read all 100, is start reading the first ones. Like when you run into a problem, like I don't know how to solve this problem, then you look down the list, which book applies to that problem, go get the book, spend an evening reading through the book, taking notes. I write in all my books. Like I keep them all and I write in them just to take notes. And then put the book down and immediately go apply those concepts the next days in a routine manner and measure your results and see how it works out. Like that's it. The most effective way to do it is to do it. Like all the information's there. The only person stopping you is you.
I like it. And final question, what's on the, where is Combat Flip Flops now? How is business? How are you guys doing? And what's in the future for you guys?
We say if you put it out there, it'll happen. We want to be the dominant philanthropic brand for the conservative market. There's really nobody serving that side, and we think there's a lot of big-hearted, tough people out there that want to see positive things happen for our country and other countries, and we're going to serve that community. We grew 450% last year. This is year 5, and so this is our first year of running completely profitable as a business. That doesn't mean you're making tons of money. It just means you're not losing money. So when you guys start running a business, you'll understand how important a profit and loss statement and cash flow is. But right now we're doing huge partnerships with Amazon. I was just there yesterday. We're going online. We're just down at Google. We got picked as the business from Washington State for Google's Economic Impact Report for 2017. And we've got a few other things going on in the media that are going to happen, some big ticket items. And really we're just going to continue to do what we're doing, make cool product, put little girls in school, and repeat. We hope people dig it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right. Hey, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you've got other things to get down to. I want to thank you again for taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk with me and really pass on this really critical knowledge to these veteran entrepreneurs who are out there. They're hungry. They just need a little push in that right direction. I think what you put out there is fantastic. Great. I like what you guys are doing down there at Combat Flip Flop. So thanks again, Matt.
Thanks a lot, man.
All right, man. That does it. Thanks again. I will talk to you very soon. All right. That was episode 24 with Matt Griffin, CEO of Combat Flip Flops. Guys, check out the links below and go visit Combat Flip Flop. Give them some love on Facebook and buy some flip flops, man. Buy something. They are an amazing company. They got some cool chamois. They got some cool bracelets. They got some awesome flip flops. I got a chamois right now that I just got. In fact, I think I bought the last Gunner chamois that was in stock, and they're going to be restocking that pretty soon, but they got some other really cool ones. So make sure you check that out, purchase something and support the cause. And it's not just causes over in other countries. They're also supporting some of the causes here, helping out Gold Star families, all that good stuff. So make sure you go check out the website, check out his the Shark Tank episode, and check out the TED Talk. That TED Talk is pretty moving, man. It's a really good episode. But you know what's even better than TED Talks? The After Action Review podcast. And if you really want to show the After Action Review podcast some love, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, and share this episode with all of your friends. And make sure you direct them to the YouTube page. We're still trying to get more YouTube subscribers. We're so close to hitting that 100 point. Let's just keep pushing and pushing and pushing forward with the YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And that does it for me. I'm going to stop talking now. I will see you at episode 25.